Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Lionel and I'm your host for LT Productions, and you are watching I Watch It Watch. Today we're going to be covering a new movie that has hit Netflix. It's called Ruth and Boaz. I appreciate everyone for coming to my channel. This is a movie review and spoiler alerts, so turn back around if you haven't watched it, or if you don't care, keep on over here. But before you leave here, either way, please like this video in support of me. You can subscribe if you are new. Welcome, 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 welcome. And you can go on and leave your comments below. Now let's get into this movie review. All right, y'all. So, Ruth and Boaz. It is a modern retelling of history. I don't want to call it just a story of Ruth and Boaz, which is one of the books of the Bible. Ruth. I know the story of it, and I'll give you a brief synopsis of it in just a few minutes. This story comes from the partnership of Pastor Devon Franklin and Mr. Tyler Perry. The writers of this piece of work is Michael Elliott and Corey Tynan. Mr. Michael Elliott, he has a writing credit from Brown Sugar. Remember that movie that starred Taye Diggs and Sanaa Lathan? They were the main characters in it. Yeah, so, or was it? Yeah, Taye Diggs, yeah. Let me see who else. Yeah, we'll get into the cast a little bit later, but yeah, I watched it twice already, and I'm really ready to watch it a third time. What I will tell you, for the ones that have not seen it as of yet, to convince you, it's an easy watch. Great love story, romantic, quite platonic, even children can see it. Basically, it's not, there's nothing in it. They kept it very, I would say, Christian, PG. You could say PG-13 if you want to say, if you want to give it that type of rating. But yeah, nothing at all raunchy or anything. Nothing that your children will be upset about, or nothing that you need to guard your children with. Yeah. So please check it out on Netflix. It is already number one as the number one most watched movie on Netflix right now. Of course, everything that Tyler does, it does go number one. Everything. So whether y'all claim you hate it online or not, y'all still give him watches and boost up his numbers to allow him to keep making more content. So, as I said, it's a retelling of a Bible story, history of the story of Ruth. Ruth is actually, and Boaz are the great grandparents of King David in the Bible, which is a part of the lineage of Jesus Christ, of where he came from. When we tell the storyline, and I'm just going to be brief about what it is with the Bible, because I'm sure, I don't know who's watching, and I'm respectful of everyone, but still give you a little knowledge of what I know and what I've learned and what I've studied. You know, Ruth, who is a Moabite. Moabites in the Bible, they were enemies of God and enemies of the children of Israel. The children of Israel are the chosen people of God. That's dated back to Exodus, and you can even go a little bit more back to Genesis, where it first began. These are the children of Israel, are descendants from the father of Abraham. So anyways, Moabites, there was Jebusites, any type of ite. They were enemies of God because they went off and served other gods. They served pagan gods, is a word that's used in the Bible concerning them. And it was also, when we look into the books of in the Bible, Exodus and Leviticus, it has been unlawful, or where we know it was established that you should not be mixing in marriage and relationships with any other type of is it religion? I don't know what the right word to say. Any other nation, because a lot of these other organizations became nations back, at least back then. So yeah, so it wasn't really lawful to do that. However, Ruth was. During this time, Naomi and her husband Elimelech, they came from Bethlehem to where Ruth was at because there was a famine. During that time, Ruth got married to a man, Moab. Moab was a part of Naomi's lineage, and he was a part of the tribe of Judah. He was a Bethlehemite. something happened as far as a tragedy. Elimelech, Moab, and their other son passed away. Now, there was, I think, a sister of Ruth, another woman that was married to the other brother. However, they had to get up out of there because they were broke. So they ended up returning back to Bethlehem at that time. Only Ruth and Naomi went on. The other woman, she stayed behind. She still wanted to be amongst the Moabites. During their time when they returned back to Bethlehem, at the time, Ruth needed to get a job. And the only thing that she could find was wheat. And she was gleaning in the fields, meaning taking up whatever that crop was that was in the fields. Boaz saw her, and instantly Ruth found favor, and he was giving her more wheat and all that. Their relationship grew. He helped even what they called in the Bible redeem her, as far as, you know, her status as far as being a Moabite. However, from that point on, they ended up getting married. And the rest is history. They had a child named Obed. Obed is the grandfather of David. Obed had a son named Jesse. David comes from the house of Jesse, who had 8 sons of his own, and I think a daughter. Did they have a daughter? Yeah, he had a daughter. But anyways, just a quick snippet. So when you actually are following along with the movie, it has a lot of elements of what was going on in the Bible. So we start off the movie with first a narration by Naomi, which is played by Felicia Rashad. Ruth, who is being played by Soraya. You know what? After this movie, Soraya deserves everything, and I think she should be further along in her career. For real. I mean, she just does it. She always comes and performs. Now, to me, even with me looking at this, I was kind of thinking of this other show that's on BET Plus called Kingdom Come. And the reason it started getting like, wait a minute, are we telling some part of that story over here from Kingdom Come and incorporating that into Ruth and Boaz? But we'll get to that in just a second. So Ruth Mobley, played by Soraya again. She is an orphan. She was abandoned by her mother at the age of 5. She dropped her off at church steps and never looked back. And we find out later on in the movie, Ruth was in 3 other foster care homes, and it just really didn't work out until the age of 15. So anyways, we meet her on the night of her performing. At the same time of her performing, you have her boyfriend at the time, which is Marlon. Marlon is played by Shaundre Hall Broomfield. If you watch Kingdom Come, you know Yolanda Adams' son, who is A&R for the opposing record label. That's him. He's playing Marlon. I said, okay. Anyways, Marlon brings out his parents, Naomi and her husband, to finally meet Ruth and enjoy the show. Naomi's already got this stank attitude because she doesn't think that there's much substance to this girl and is already shading her. After her performance, Ruth didn't know that Marlon was inviting her parents, so she ended up saying, well, at least let me just walk you out, you know. And Naomi said, no need, stay in your element. Because there was a comment earlier like, I'm glad you got to see me in my element and all that. Of course, she's already looking her up and down. Now, Ruth, even in her performance, she just didn't feel like this was the place that she was supposed to be. She has ties to the church and just really wasn't feeling it. Like, this really wasn't her calling. Because even as she was doing this performance, she was feeling a certain type of way with men that were throwing money at her, like this was some type of strip joint or something, you know. So after they get done, they're backstage. The parents leave, of course. This guy named Sai, who is kind of what I want to call him, the middleman in bridging a relationship between Jermaine Dupri. Yeah, he's in the movie, and he wants to sign Ruth and her friend Brianna, because they were a duo on stage, to his record label, which we know is So Def. And thinking it's going to be her future home, they want her to run a couple tracks just to see how it goes, da-da-da-da-da. Ruth really isn't feeling it. Sai comes over and just like, you know, hey, this is our big break, da-da-da-da-da. Marlon was even saying, oh, 1 second. Ruth isn't feeling it, whatever. After they get outside, Marlon was like, hey, don't mess this up. This is a big opportunity for you guys. And she was like, look, I'm not really feeling this or whatnot, and I don't really need someone criticizing me at this moment. I need to feel encouraged. So at the studio, Ruth and Brianna, they're now recording, but she's still not feeling it. And she's just telling Bri, I think God is leading me somewhere else. And she ends up quitting. She talks with Sai, the one that helped bridge this relationship between him and her and Jermaine Dupree. He was like, look, you can't really blow this deal for me. I've been doing a lot. I've been paying rent for you. I even bought you a car. She was just like, look, I got $3,000 and I can give you the keys to the car. You can have it all back. And I will give you payments on what you say that I owe you, because he says that he is $250,000 in the hole because of his investment. And he's like, no, I need you to fulfill your contract obligations and then you are free. So basically, he signed her up to this unsigned a 360 deal that she never signed up for. He's been doing all these favors and doing all this other stuff. That's how people just lock you in. I say on just a more general basis, everything that glitters is not gold. People saying that they want to help you and they believe in you, they're really looking out for themselves. And Ruth found out very quickly in regards to all that. So Sai gave her a warning, like, if you don't get in here and do what you're supposed to do, there's going to be consequences. Next thing you know, Marlon and his dad, they were shot. Naomi calls for Ruth to come up to the hospital, and that's when Naomi informed them of all this that happened, and then Marlon and the dad were called on the glory. We find out that there was a carjacking and that they were pow-powed at the stop sign, and instantly right there we knew it was Sai. So of course, after they shed their tears, they have the funeral and we're at the repast. Miss Naomi finds out that her husband has been in so much debt. There's been a foreclosure on the house that they live at right now, and he never told her about any of that. But the diamond in the rough of this whole situation, that there is a house that they own in Pelham, Tennessee, that's in Ruth's name, and whomever their financial officer is, made sure that it stayed in her name, in Naomi's name, so that there's something that she can still be tangible. But yeah, the auditors are coming very quickly to come pick up their stuff. I said, that is some low down stuff. You kept that under wraps that whole time, and then, like, what were you going to do? Man, and now she can't even, if she wanted to, cuss you out for all of this, That's quite crazy. Sai comes to the repast, and Ruth is like, what are you doing there? Da-da-da-da-da. Just to get to the nitty gritty, he says, it's my time to collect. The carjacking did happen, but nobody was supposed to be hurt. But guess what? Stuff happens. So he says, get back into the studio, or Miss Naomi's next. Of course, later on, there's a lot of anxiety and seeking God to see what to do. She didn't really get a clear answer, but she knew that she couldn't stay there. She ends up going to Miss Naomi the following day, I guess, but finding out that all this furniture is being moved out. And she asked the financial officer, what's up? Where is Naomi? And he ends up saying that she's at the bus station right now. Ruth hightails it there. It looks like she done got whatever she needed to leave Atlanta. And she goes to the bus station and says that I'm coming with you. And she said, absolutely not. You better get off this bus, girl. Da, 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 da. And Ruth was like, nope. Wherever you go, I go. And that's part of the Bible, what Ruth was even saying to Naomi. Back then, I think there was a time where Naomi was getting sick, if I remember correctly. And she was like, leave me here, or I'm going to go here, you go over there. And she was like, no, I'm coming with you. I think it was in their travel from wherever Ruth and them had settled beforehand to go to Bethlehem. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Don't quote me, but I'm about 90% sure. But yeah. but I can be corrected. So, yeah. So, of course, they're traveling on to Tennessee on this bus. Ruth has some snacks, and she's eating and wanting to share it with Naomi. Naomi's still looking at Ruth like, and so she refuses snacks. So after Ruth goes to sleep, now Naomi has taken some of the snacks out of her bag that she's got. Just trying to be stubborn, man. All right, so they make it to Pegram, Tennessee. And when she sees the house that they used to live in, or at least another house that they had, Naomi and her husband, she was looking at this house and it was just opening up old wounds. When they kind of settle in there just to bring their stuff into the house, Ruth is trying to put up different barriers on the windows to try to keep the critters out. Ruth wanted to just bring up a subject just to offer her condolence to Naomi regarding her son and also her husband. I understand it because I lost my dad and brother within about an 8-hour span, maybe a little bit more, 8 to 10 hour span from each other. It wasn't 24 hours, I'll just say that much. So that's a lot to grieve. However, Naomi didn't want to hear it at all. She immediately got up. She wasn't even audible to her. Got up, rushed into her room, slammed the door, and then there's a cross in the room. She took it down, and she says, "I am done with you," meaning God. So, Ruth goes out to get a job. And the only job that she got that was available to her is to harvest grapes. So she takes this job and she's going to get all these grapes, how they make their money, the more grapes that they collect, the more money that they will receive for that day. Now, on this vineyard on where they're collecting, it is owned by Boaz. They use Boaz for short. He took over the winery from his father who had passed away. Boaz catches the attention of Ruth. Ruth catches his attention, basically. He sees her, and he's just kind of just asking her different questions, just being kind to her. It was told to him that she's not really taking breaks and all that. He was like, well, I know that you're not taking any breaks, can I offer you some water? She's not really responding to him, want a break, something like that. And then he tries to get her to open up a little bit more, and he shows her different techniques at how to pull the grapes. But Ruth ain't buying because she's got this guard up right now. So. Back at the house, Pastor Charles, who is familiar with Naomi, he's trying to get her to come to the door. She knows that he's there, but she doesn't open up. And Charles was like, heaven rejoices when one comes home. This is in reflection to when, in the Bible, when they talk about the backslider. And that's where that comes from. Anyways, I'm trying not to just be so Bible-ish, but it is a Bible story. So, later on that night, of course, Ruth is telling her about her day to Naomi, and she's trying to barricade another window. Naomi's not getting up when she's asking her for some more tape and all that, and something happens, and Naomi ends up busting out laughing because of what Ruth had done. I think she slipped, fell, something, whatever. But anyways, they started laughing, and that was kind of just their breakthrough. Ruth returns back to the field, probably the next day or whatever, and the assistant that is Boaz's wants to offer her a permanent position. Of course, she takes it. Now things are going pretty well, and one of the workers who has now become friends with Ruth, Elise, invites her to karaoke. They go there. Boaz is there also. So she ends up, someone signs her up, I think it was Elise that signs her up, and gets her to sing this one song. I know the song. It's in my head too. Don't wake me up if it's not over. Dun, dun, dun. Whatever. I'm trying to remember the words, but whatever, it's in my head. But y'all need to watch it. But she did really good. She sang the most country song that she knows. It is Tennessee. Come on. Anyways, it impresses Boaz. So now Boaz is trying to flirt. Ruth is not biting, and he basically says, "How you were responding to me? You must have this type of reaction to everybody, because nobody." I said, "Oh, Boaz, you being a little bit arrogant." I guess he knows his his own suaveness, and he knows his swag, and it usually works. But with this one, no. She just says, I know men like you, how you men operate. She did find out that he was the owner of the winery, and she says that Atlanta is full of them. That's how you try to be, and she just basically was over it. He was trying to buy her a drink earlier. She was like, I can buy my own. I mean, she just got a situation where this dude telling her, you owe me this and that, da-da-da-da-da. Of course, she's not going to be responded of another man coming into her life, potentially trying to tell her that she owes him something. So, Elise ended up taping Ruth and putting it on YouTube, and it's already gotten like 80,000 views. And Ruth said, please take that down immediately. Bree is being questioned by Sai where she's at. He tried to take her phone. You need to tell me, da 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 da. And Bree says she doesn't really know, because she did leave a note when she left to Bree, but didn't tell her where she was going. But now that they have touched bases, Bree tells her that Sai is not cooled down, and you need to stay away a whole lot. Stay where you're at, basically. Then it looks like the community. What happened is that Ruth went to church. Boaz was there too. With Ruth, he found out the connection between Ruth and Naomi. Boaz is familiar with Naomi because he grew up around her and all that. So now there is this community project where the church and also Boaz, they come to fix up this house that's been basically abandoned as to where Ruth and Naomi are staying at. So they remodel it, extreme makeover church edition. Boaz is up here fixing the roof. He got his shirt off and letting us all just melt for Mr. Tyler Lepley. You know who he is. I know him famously by Benny. I know some of y'all know him by P Valley, and some of y'all know him from Harlem too. So, anyways, at this point, Naomi wants to make a connection between Boaz and Ruth, and he says, Ruth made this iced tea for you when he got done with the roof and all that. And then she said, suggest to them, why don't y'all take a walk? So at this point, Ruth is more laid back and she's letting her guard down. Remember those walls I built? Anyways, Boaz talks a little bit more about himself. I think at this point she did a little bit later she apologizes. But anyways, we find out his background is that he went to the military, went and got his MBA, and lived in New York. He worked on Wall Street. And he ended up coming back here after his father passed away to take over the business. They hear Naomi scream, and Ruth rushes back. And it was just that she was screaming because they had blessed her with a car, and it was Bo specifically. And Naomi's like, look, Ruth, now you don't have to walk into town. And that was pretty cool. Boaz went even further, just knowing the talent that Ruth has, to set up a time of when Ruth could meet Babyface. He surprises her with it. Babyface is one of my favorite singers. I love him, and he's just so cool with how he sings and all that good stuff. So anyways, Ruth sings for Babyface and all that, and now they're going to collab later on in the movie. They write a song together. After that, of course, Ruth thanks him for that. They get a little bit more intimate with each other. At least now Ruth is opening up, and he asks, why were you so tough? Because during this time she apologized for her. She really misjudged him from how she knows men to be. And she did explain why she's so tough. So maybe because I was abandoned and been in 3 foster care families up until the age of 15. And he was like, I won't let anything bad happen to you. And Ruth was like, you can't say that. And there's more talk and all that. And Boaz ended up saying, maybe I was sent to you. Giving a little bit more Bible talk as to, you being my purpose and all of that. Ruth comes home and sees Naomi is planting different plants. And she's telling her about her day. She got to sing with Babyface, but noticing that Naomi's not really reacting. Next thing you know, Naomi is overcome by grief. And I'm glad that was explained. It was expressed, because look, there are ebbs and flows in grieving. And no, you shouldn't be over it in a week. You shouldn't be over in a month. And that's what was going on with Naomi. Ruth took care of her. Bo and Ruth, they go on their first date. And they go to this house. And the words are in Latin as far as what Ruth was interpreting, and she wanted it to know what it meant in English, or what it meant to him. First, Naomi gives her a dress to wear, because things have cooled down between Naomi and Ruth. But the interpretation of the Latin words is her house. Her dad gave this house to his mother. His mother passed away when he was young. And since it's now in Bo's possession, he's going to give it to the woman who chooses him. It's going to be her house. Then Bo shows Ruth how to crush grapes. During this time they were crushing grapes, they end up kissing. She pulls out of the kiss after moments of really just being enthroned in passion. She says, I can't really risk you getting hurt. So then she runs away. Sai, he makes it to Tennessee because he's now has seen the video of her going viral. He makes it to the club and spots Boaz because he's been told, have you seen this girl? And they say, yeah, he's been around this person over here, Boaz. Boaz wasn't biting what Sai was trying to give, because he was asking me, have you seen this girl? He says he wants to sign her to a label because she has such a good voice. But Boaz wasn't biting. He wasn't telling him nothing. So Naomi calls Ruth, or she gets a call from the hospital in regards to Naomi. Naomi was rushed to the hospital. She said, I'm not going just yet. But I just want to let you know that I forgot. Out of everything of losing my husband and son, I forgot how good God has been to me. And you've been here, and I love you. At this point, there was an affirmation of this devotion to each other, because now Naomi has softened all the way to Ruth. She gives her advice, don't lose out on love because of fear. Go on forth and do this thing with Boaz. So there's a festival. Ruth is there, and after running away from Boaz, she dedicates the song to him. And from what I don't know what the title is, but the whole gist of the song is that your love brought me home, a place of security, While she was singing, you could see that Boaz was tearing up because they really got close. It was very intimate, and it was her way of pouring back into him. I'm glad it wasn't some type of one-way street of being poured into. How the women are who needs healing and all that, and they just get everything. I'm glad that there was an exchange there. It needed to be shown. While she's singing, she spots Sai there. She was getting deterred, but she got back onto the song and made sure that she fulfilled it all. Next thing you know, the winery is caught on fire. Boaz has lost everything. Ruth knows that this is Sai, and he did all this, and she says, I'm sorry for what happened to your winery. I have to go. I have to leave town. And of course, Boaz is very confused at this moment. She goes home, and Sai has made it to Naomi's. And he's sitting there. Ruth confesses that Sai is the one that made the carjacking happen, that ended your husband and son's lives. And Sai says, I'm taking Ruth with me. She has something that she has to do for me. Ruth tries to struggle, and he ends up knocking her back on the floor. He's got another dude with her. So anyways, Boaz got the notion to go to Naomi's home. He gets there and sees what's happening, and he starts fighting with Sai, and then also the bodyguard, if you want to call him that. Anyways, Naomi then got up. Sai was about to shoot Boaz. Anyway, she had her own, and she shot it. And she said, next time I won't miss. You took my husband and my son. You're not taking my daughter. I said, go ahead, Naomi, go ahead. So it was over with this whole Sai situation, and I guess they let him go and all that good stuff. And anyways, with Boaz, he was supposed to get some type of recommendation by some high influential people, company and all that. He said, I think it was, he won an award instead of just getting a recommendation. So from this, what happened was Boaz thought that everything was ruined and destroyed in the winery. Come to find out, from the fire, everything that's made the wine make it taste even more pleasurable. They use that same wine to get this recommendation that turned into an award. Boaz wants to be partners with Ruth at this point because he helped save his business. She helped him save his business. And it's going to call it R&B. I said Ruth and Boaz. I said, go ahead, y'all. He says, you don't mind being an artist and a partner? She said, yes. I want to crush with you. Basically, crush grapes together. I say, yes. Yes, yes, yes. We see Naomi in her home put her cross back up. You know, us humans, we get angry and we never really turn back. And we can just do stuff to God. God isn't affected by us the same way that humans are affected when we do stuff. Not saying that he likes it, but he understands if one of his children turn their backs on him. Because God is really married, or Jesus is married to the backslider. And he has his way of turning the heart of the king. That's something that's also in the Bible. But he's able to change the mind. And he's never done chasing after you to come get who is of his own. So, of course, now Naomi's heart is submitted back to God. And that was symbolism of, yes, I'm back to you, God. All right, so the ending thought, or the ending, that Naomi was narrating, the ending narration, I'll just say. We see that Ruth and Boaz, they get married, and you see Naomi being like whomever, I guess the bridesmaid, the matron of honor, whatever. She says the best love stories don't start with fireworks. Sometimes they start in the ashes. I said, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Shout out to everyone. Young Jock was in it too. Pastor, whoever his name is, Pastor Charles? Now, I know him as Marcel on Beyond the Gates. Marcel is that crooked cop that's got all this attitude. If y'all watch Beyond the Gates, I say, cool. Great love story. I loved it. Movies aren't dead yet. It's just, you got to just come out of yourself. Even if you're inspired by something else, mix it up somehow, Again, I recommend it. Go watch it. Binge it a couple times, whatever. Again, it's an easy watch. So shout out to everyone involved. Mr. Devon Franklin, Tyler Perry, Tyler Lepley, Soraya, Felicia Rashad, everybody, the Babyface, Jermaine Dupri, Young Doc, all of them. Just shout out to it. You guys made, I understand why it's #1. So y'all let me know in the comments what y'all thought. I was a little bit long-winded, but hopefully you still enjoy and can get what I was saying out of it, and maybe even a history lesson as far as the Bible. But that's all I do have. Let me know in the comments. Like this video, subscribe, share, and until the next review, peace.